right, so welcome back to chapter 6. It's going to be reports. And this is where we're going to be taking a look at the infinite amount of reports that we can create using QuickBooks. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive right in to the very chapter here. Now, before even doing reports, right, let's talk about how we can find our transactions in QuickBooks. So I did show you a few examples here, okay? But obviously the main one is going to be looking and using this little search button right here on this icon right here for the icon bar. You can type in whatever you want to do here and you'd be able to find your transactions accordingly. Now, a lot of the times, right, if I were to choose an invoice, right, I have this little section right here that says find, and this will allow me to actually search through my transactions one at a time. But if you're kind of going through this and you're not quite sure what you're looking for a particular person, you can probably spend hours going through the back button until you find the invoice that you're looking for, okay? Not the best bet to go through unless you just recently entered in a transaction and maybe you made a mistake. You can easily go use the find back and forward button right here on each individual form. Okay, but the second way that you should do it is by going through this little window right here, which allows you to quickly go through all of your search options. So right again, if you type in let's type in cruise. Okay. If I go ahead and type in cruise and I press my enter button or search button right here, it should be able to find me transactions that dealt with Maria Cruz. So here, automatically populates 3, 4, 5, 6 different sections over here. So here's the invoices, here's the payments for Maria Cruz, right? And of course, the last option I showed you that you could also do that is by going into the respective transactions list. So in this case, for my customers, I can hit this transaction list and I can be able to go through by the category of what my transaction was. Was it me invoicing somebody? Was it me creating a sales receipt? Or was it me receiving money from other people, receiving payments, right? So that's the third way that you can search QuickBooks to find your transactions much more easily, okay? So that's that section right there. I will talk about the quick zoom feature in a few moments when we build our reports. But it is really, really an option when you use the quick zoom report to be able to, or the zoom feature. I'll show you that when we dive into actually building our reports and showing you how I'm able to do that. Now, in this case, let's talk about quick reports. What are quick reports? Well, quick reports are basically anything that you want to see in a form of report. Now, you can create quick reports for almost anything, okay? Whether it's on an account, like a person, whether it's on a contact list, or whether it's some kind of account that is on your chart of accounts. So anything that has registers will have quick reports, but as well as your expenses and your income. So anything on your chart of accounts will have expenses, okay? And of course, you can, or will have quick reports. And of course, you could do quick reports on your invoices itself. So pretty much you could do quick reports for almost anything. So let's go ahead and take a look at my example here in my chart of accounts. Now, if you remember, right, when I mentioned to you this way back in chapter 12, when we introduced you to the chart of accounts, I mentioned this for you guys, okay? Your assets, liabilities, and equity will have registers, while your income and your expenses will only have quick reports. Okay? I mentioned this way back when, but so then let's take a look at an example. So if I want to do a quick report on rent expense, right? Let's take a look at my rent expense. If I double click on it and I click all transactions, right, it should show that I wrote a check, right, on January 5th to Orlando Properties, okay? So again, it just basically formulates your report accordingly, and it gives you a quick overview of your report, like boom, right there, all the information in one sitting. Okay. Yes, you may need to make a few adjustments here, but that's what a quick report does. It takes the information and just runs a real quick report on it. Okay. And just because income and expenses only have quick reports, right? Your registers also have quick reports as well. Okay. But you have to activate it differently than you were to do it down below, right? Down below, for any income or expense, I just double click on it. But if I double click on my checking register, what's going to happen is going to open up my register. And that's not what I want. I want to run a quick report on my checking account. So how do I do that? I can click on the account, and down below, you're going to have the options to run reports. And if I click on this, I can create a quick report. So in this case, I could do a quick report. This is the quick report of all the transactions that have occurred throughout this entire time. So you got the date, right? And all the checks that you've written, all the deposits that you made, all the transfers that you made, okay? And including deposits and bill payments, all in a quick report, okay? Now notice this. If you check out my mouse, it becomes this Z plus in the magnifying glass, right? That's the quick zoom feature. So if I were to go ahead and say I want to check out this bill payment, right? I can double click on that bill payment and it will pop up for me. That is called the quick zoom feature. All right? It allows you to see transactions while you're in a report. So that's the cool thing about having reports. Now, what you see this little arrow here, this is the collapse and expand. So in this case, if my bill payments expand, I can go ahead and drop this menu and it would drop it down. But in this case, it doesn't drop. There's no extra information here. Okay, so that is the collapse feature. So if you have a bunch of chart of, if you have your if you want to do a report on your chart of accounts, again, yes, you can do that. It's called the ledger report. We'll talk about that later on, but they do have options for you to collapse information and expand it, and that's what this little tiny triangle on the left side does. Okay, but again, the quick zoom feature is when you have your mouse and it becomes a magnifying glass with a Z in it. So it allows you to look at the list of information, right? If this is not enough information, you can use the quick zoom feature to actually look into this bill payment. Okay, so that's that there. So once again, if I want to build a quick report for anything that has a register, so an asset, liability, and equity, or anything in your chart accounts, including income and expenses, that's how you do it, right? For registers, you have to go down to the bottom and run a quick report. For income and expenses, you just double click on them. Okay, so that's what quick reports does for the chart of accounts. And yes, you can do it on people as well. Okay, so if I want to go to a particular customer. So let's go ahead and pick on someone who has a transaction. So let's do Miranda's Corner, right? She is quite an account activity. Or let's do Maria Cruz. Okay. Oh no, she doesn't owe anything. Oh, okay. Well, let's do Miranda's Corner. So what you can do here is they also have a familiar button right here that says Run Report. This is a quick report. Okay. So it says View as Report. So this is what it means to be able to do a quick report on your customer's list, anything, whether it's dealing with people or so on and so forth. So in this case, it runs a quick report on Miranda's Corner, telling me that they have one outstanding invoice is the reason why they owe me so much money. Okay? So that's another way that you could do a quick report on people. You could do quick reports on items, right? We already know how to do that, right? By going to reports, items and inventory, and then doing your item inventory stock. But yes, you can do an actual manual one if you go to your items list and be able to do a quick report this way. So right here, reports, and do a quick report. Okay. All right. So again, you can essentially do all any and all quick reports on pretty much anything in QuickBooks. Okay, I believe there's one exception to that rule. It's somewhere in here that says you cannot do one. I cannot remember what it is, but it is in your book, and it tells you what quick report you cannot do. Okay. So that's quick reports. Now using quick zoom, I already showed you how to use that feature. Okay. So then let's go ahead and talk about the different types of reports and what you can do with them. Okay. So as I've mentioned before, right? Every single chapter has a bunch of reports that are tailored to the position that you're currently in. So again, when we looked at the sales chapter in chapter 2, that was dealing with reports that can be done on sales if you are the sales representative, right? We saw in chapter 4 the reports that you could do as a vendor or as you communicate with your vendor, right? That's for anybody that's in charge of accounts payable, okay? Or just inventory or whatever it is, right? Making purchasing. They would run those reports specifically on the vendors that they seek out. So in this case, when I'm looking at these type of reports are more for the general accountant or the general ledger manager, okay? The accountant. So this section is very, very important because if you decide to become just a regular accountant and not have to deal with sales representative or purchasing agent or inventory manager or payroll, right? This is your go-to types of reports that you must run as an accountant, okay? Now there are two main types of reports, okay? And they are number one going to be the accounting type of reports, and then you have business management reports, okay? So again, accounting reports are going to be including your financial statements, things like trial balances, things like general ledger account reports, okay, and so on and so forth. Anything that has to deal with accounts and accounts only, all right, straightforward. And then, of course, your business management is going to be those that have to deal with people, deal with sales, deal with particular items, or deal with a certain section or area in the business, right? That has nothing to do with accounts. Okay, so this is going to be invoice reports, right? Accounts payable reports, anything that has to do with like something like that, or bills in this case, not accounts payable, but bills, right? Those kind of reports are meant for the idea to manage your business a lot better. So in this case, running those reports are significant to manage your business. Okay, and they have to deal with people outside or people inside the company, or also people outside of the company, but also items in particular. So again, has nothing to do with accounts because accounts already has its own separate type of report. Okay, and we will talk about the accrual versus the cash basis. So if you remember from chapter 1, what is the difference between cash and accrual basis? Well, it is determining, right? When we look at cash is we only record income and record expenses when cash is readily available to either receive or to spend. So the main priority is if you're running on a cash basis type of business, you're not going to do many functions in QuickBooks, right? You're going to be very limited to what you can do. Where an accrual type of basis of accounting will record an income or record an expense regardless whether payment was either received or was paid. Okay, so that means there's invisible money even going in, or you have IOUs. So in this case, the idea here is you record the income when you earned it. So if you sold something, you sold it whether you were paid or not. Okay, and you record expenses whether when the service has been completed for you. You record that expense when it happens, okay, whether you paid or not. Okay, so that's the idea here. Now, the best thing about changing between cash versus accrual basis in reporting is you actually get to see the actual reality of what happens when you go from an accrual type of basis of accounting to cash basis. So you're actually looking at the true numbers of your accounting, okay? Your true numbers, because again, in order for you to pay for the bills that you owe, you actually need physical cash to be able to pay it. You can't be pocketing all this money out from your own wallet, right? It has to come from somewhere. And that's what this helps you do, is it helps you see the actual cash flow coming in to the business and coming out from the business, okay? So that's the difference between those two types of reports. Now, in this case, it's going to tell me, how do I set that up? Well, straightforward, okay? If you don't have it already toggled on, if you go to the edit preferences, we're going to go to reports, okay? Reports and graphs, and we're going to company, and then you have the option to choose between cash or an accrual type of basis. Now, in this case, when we look at this right here, what we need to know is that by default, it will be accrual, okay? By default, it will be accrual. You have to manually change it if you want to reflect the true cash flows. But in this case, right, it's 10 times more easier. You don't have to necessarily make the changes here, right here in your preferences, right? You could do it right on the reports. And I'll show you what I mean in a couple minutes, okay? But yes, by default, it is going to be on an accrual type of basis because it allows the functionality of QuickBooks for you to, it's maximized, right? It allows you to do everything, including bill payments, receive payments, and so on and so forth, right? So again, when you have the idea of recording a transaction that has happened, even though you haven't received money for it, that's the accrual basis, okay? So that's that right there. So let's see what's next. Okay, so let's actually dive into separating the two different types of accounts, different types of reports here. So we're going to start off with the accounting report. Now, to initiate the accounting reports, here is a great way that we can actually take a look at this. We're going to show you what's called the report center. Whether you find it on your home page, your icon bar, you do have a report center on your icon bar. It's usually at the bottom here. Okay, document reports. Here's your report center. You can even find your report center by going up to the reports menu and clicking report center. Now, what does the report center do? Well, if you want to take an overview or get an idea of what each report is, instead of going up to the reports menu and blindly picking which one you're looking at, right? This way, it gives you an overview of what the reports are, and it also allows you to do beyond what you want to see in that list, okay? So you have 3 views that you can view your report center, right? First one's going to be carousel view. Carousel view, right, allows you to go through each and every single one like this. Now, because due to my lack of capacity for, running this program, right? I'm running an 8 RAM gigabyte hard drive, but my graphics cards is definitely not up to par. So in this case, you can kind of see it doesn't run very smoothly. But if you have the higher capacity type of computer that is able to do this, this should be able to run pretty smoothly. But again, it gives you like a quick, like little, like, you can flip through the pages as you like and be able to view your information accordingly, right? That's that one. And for example, right here, my profit and loss, it shows me what it should look like, right? Sample file, and it allows me to make adjustments accordingly. Whether I want to adjust the time period, I can choose to run this report, I can choose to favorite this report, or if I need help to create the report, I can do that too, okay? That's the carousel view. The second one is going to be called list view. So in this case, list view, pretty straightforward, right? It gives you a list of all the different reports. And of course, on the left side here, gives you the different categories. So if I want to run reports on sales, I can do that, right? Or if I want to run an employee and taxes, you could do that too. So right here on the left gives you your categories, and then on the right it gives you the actual report. Okay, this gives you a description too of what the question is being asked in this report. But in this case, that's all it's giving you. It doesn't give you an overview. It doesn't give you a sample. It doesn't show you what it is. It just gives you a description of what it is. Right? And it allows you to make modifications and so on and so forth. Now, the most one that is preferable is going to be grid view, where you do get to see it in a form of a list, but you get to see a little overview of a sample file of what it should look like. Okay, so I prefer this one the most. Okay, again, it's going to be relative for whoever wants to choose the way that they want to see their reports, whether it's carousel, list, or grid view. In this case, this is the most effective if you are a beginner type of user who's not quite sure of what kind of report to run or what it will look like. Here is the best view that you can use. So again, if you're running a company or sales or whatever type of topic that you're looking at. Okay? But when you're in the report center, you have this additional section right here, all right, that you're not able to do by running a report regularly through the menu bar, right? You don't have memorized transactions, or memorized reports or favorite reports or so on and so forth, or recent reports, right? Right here, this is the extra tabs here that you can only find in the report center. So if you favorite one of these reports, right, it will show up right here. Okay, if you memorize the report, which I'll talk more so at the end of this chapter, okay, and recent ones that I've maybe done, it will show up here. All right, so that's what's cool about this, is that you get extra tabs here to be able to create your reports accordingly. Okay, so that is that one. So first report that we're going to take a look at for today, for this section right here, is going to be your profit and loss. Okay, so when we talk about being the accountant, right, there are 4 major financial statements that you must be able to create. All right, in accounting there's 4. In QuickBooks it's 3. Okay, then it's going to be number 1 is your profit and loss. Number 2 is your statement of equity. Number 3 is your balance sheet. And number 4 is your statement of cash flows. All right. Now, of course, that's 4 in accounting, but in QuickBooks, the balance sheet and the statement of equity are together in one. So in this case, your statement of equity and your balance sheet is going to be in one, which is the balance sheet. Okay, so in this case, QuickBooks only has profit and loss, balance sheet, and statement of cash flows. Okay, now how do I create that? Well, let's take a look. If I go up to my report center, or my report center, right, it'd be under company and financials. If I were to just do the drop down list, right, I would locate company and financials, and I would still get those same three reports that I'm looking at: profit and loss, balance sheet, and statement of cash flows. Okay. Now again, I'm going to go ahead and show you the very first one, which is going to be the profit and loss based on the standard, which is an overall. What is that? So then if I go ahead and look at my report, now notice this. I have nothing for the standard report. That's fine. You do need to toggle it up here, right, to see what parameters or time frames that you're looking at. Okay. I'm going to show you different examples so then I can show you what you can do. So again, if that's just the standard report. Now, what if I want to be more specific? What if I want to compare, right? I can take a look here, year-to-date company comparison. You got previous year comparison, so you could compare your profit and loss from this year to last year to the next few years. All right? You could do it by job. And here's the one I want to show you is going to be by class. Okay? So if I go ahead and do my report by class, right? This is how I can utilize this information to manipulate and create my report. So as you can see right now, this fiscal year, there's nothing going on because it's talking about as of today, which is February 14 of 2022, right? That's right now. In this case, a lot of my transactions happened the previous fiscal year. But in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to toggle my time frame saying I want to show everything since I started this business. Okay? So by doing so, I click all. All right? That's my first customization that I'm doing here is choosing and selecting a time frame. So as you can see, my profit and loss for my classes show here. Now in this case, what are classes? Classes allow me to separate my income and expenses based on my business location. So as you can see here, I have one for overhead, which is just regular that deals with both of them. And then I have my San Jose location and my Walnut Creek. So in this case, what I can do here is I can compare my profit and loss from my San Jose location to my Walnut Creek. So here, my profit is negative 2021. So in this case, I have currently a loss in San Jose, and right here, I currently have a positive 1,595 in my Walnut Creek. Well, in this case, when I'm looking at these numbers here, you can definitely see which one is doing more better. In this case, the Walnut Creek is doing more better. But you have to look into details of and compare here, like where the expenses are going. Where's my revenue coming from? What other expenses I need to incur, right? So in this case, I have a lot of expenses that I've incurred in my San Jose location, right? I paid rent expense for my San Jose location and did not pay rent expense for my Walnut Creek location. So as you can see, that's the reason why my amounts went under. Now, that's looking at an accrual type of basis because in this case, if I want to look at actual physical cash, let's take a look here. So again, instead of having to go into edit preferences and changing the parameters between cash basis versus accrual basis, you have it right here. Okay? Much more easier. You don't need to go into edit preferences and change it at all. That's to change the format for it to be applied to the entire company file. In this case, unnecessary. Okay? You can simply do it by here. So if I want to look at a cash basis, it's going to change my numbers immediately. Now let's take a look. Which one is actually doing better? In this case, let's see, I have to click refresh. So once I change it from accrual to cash basis, you should, rule of thumb, click refresh to see if anything changes. And now, yes, my number has changed, right? I'm still negative 2021, and I have this time it's 1176. So in this case, this is actually looking at profits from actual cash I've actually received for my sales and actual cash that I actually spent to pay for things. Okay, so again, that's the difference between the accrual versus the cash basis. So in this case, my San Jose location under a cash basis is still not doing as well as my Walnut Creek location. Okay, so that's what you can do here, and you can even tailor your reports to work differently or to get the information that you want. Okay, so that is the profit and loss right there. Okay, standard, and I'm gonna click no. So that's that one. All right, other ones, yes. You have a question?
Sorry, I smashed my keyboard. Sorry.
No worries. Okay. So that's your profit and loss, right? Your balance sheet. Your balance sheet is going to be one of the more important, um, your more important type of reports is because if I were to do my balance sheet standard, right, and I go ahead and run this is what it does. It tests the accounting equation. Okay. Most important thing that you need to know is your accounting equation must hold true at all times. Okay, so in this case, what is my accounting equation? Right? We learned this in chapter 1. It's where your total assets are going to equal your liabilities plus your equity. So that's exactly what this report does is it tallies up my total assets. So here you go. Total assets is $42,855, right? Comparing to my total liabilities and equity, which once again is 42,855. Now, if you did accounting correctly, your balance sheet, or in this case, your accounting equation is going to stay whole. It's going to hold true at all times. But if you go in here, you start deleting a few entries here and there, right? Rule of thumb: do not delete anything in QuickBooks unless you just never use it. If that's the case, then yes, you could go ahead and delete it. But by deleting those transactions, you're affecting everything. So in this case, right, you're affecting all the accounts that are involved with that transaction. So if you deleted an invoice, that's going to affect your checking, that's going to affect your accounts receivable, affect your sales, affect your sales tax if you charged it, okay, and so on and so forth. Okay. So again, your statement of equities right here gives you your opening balance equity, right? Your capital stock, okay, because this is a corporation. Your retained earnings, which is the same thing as income summary. Okay. So again, your statement of equity is right here. Okay. It's this section right here. All right. So that's that one. Okay. And then we have the last one, which is going to be the statement of cash flows, which is pretty straightforward because if you run your reports on either accrual or a cash basis, it's more or less going to be the same idea here. Okay. So statement of cash flows basically allows you to see your business and how much cash is actually flowing into your company versus cash flowing out from your company. So in this case, it takes the accrual basis of accounting and converts it into cash basis. So it adds money that you haven't collected yet, or it subtracts the money that you haven't collected yet, and it adds back the money you haven't paid your bills for yet. So in this case, it shows you where your cash is actually flowing. When you start your business, right, you're going to have 3 categories, which is going to be operating, investing, and financing. So again, operating is going to be things that you have to do to operate your business. So again, accounts receivable, accounts payable would most likely be under this category. Investing is going to be when you purchase things like fixed assets. Okay. Financing is going to be if you take loans out. Okay. So in other means, it shows you where your cash is actually going in. So cash flows, right? Cash flowing in and cash flowing out from the company. Okay. Other things I want to show you too is this is also the area for you to be able to create your trial balances as well as your general ledger reports. How do I do that? Now, this one, again, is going to be a separate category, okay? It's not going to be under company financials because that, again, is already broken down to three things, right? Your profit and loss, your balance sheet, and your statement of cash flows. Now, for the reason of doing a trial balance is to make sure that you are ensuring the accuracy of your accounting, right? But when you do QuickBooks, QuickBooks just does the accounting behind the scenes for you, so you don't necessarily have to run a trial balance for any reason unless you're doing your, wrapping up the quarter or the end of the accounting period. So this is going to fall under the category of accounting and taxes. Okay, so accountant and taxes. So if you click on this or go on here, it will give you your trial balance, your general ledger report, so your transaction list. So if you want to see every transaction that you've done, so whether you enter in an invoice, how does that actually reflect in terms of debits and credits, right? It will show you the actual transaction that you could actually see the accounting behind the scenes. So yes, you can create a report on that, so on and so forth, right? And you can even do an audit trail, okay, and so on and so forth, okay? So again, if I were to do my trial balance, right, this ensures that whatever I did, whether my transactions I recorded, right, where does the debit go and where does the equal and opposite credit go? So that's what this test is, that does your total debits equal your total credits? So this is more or less in terms of figuring out whether the QuickBooks did the accounting behind the scenes correct or not. So again, by you deleting any transactions, you will throw this trial balance off balance. Okay, a lot of holes in your accounts. Another report that I'm going to show you is going to be the general ledger account. That one, once again, for any reason that you need to do a report, okay, or want to know the account balances, that's exactly what this does for you. Okay, it runs a report on every single account that exists in your chart of accounts and gives you the account balance on here. Okay, including all income and expenses. So that's the difference here for that here. But what if you just want to just take a quick overview? Again, you can simply do that by just going to your chart of accounts and getting a quick overview of your account information. But once again, you're only limited to your assets, your liabilities, and your equity. So that's all you get. You don't have your income or your expenses. So that's the difference between looking here on your chart of accounts and actually running an actual general ledger account report. Okay. Any questions in regards to accounting report? So again, once you reach the end of an accounting period, that is standard that you are obligated to do if you are the position of the general accountant of the company. Okay, you must run your 4 financial statements. In this case, there's 3. Plus, for any insurances, you can run a trial balance and a general ledger report. Okay, any questions there?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and skip forward here to business management. Now, when I talk about business management, right, you already get to see a lot of the business management type of reports in every single chapter, right? Business management allows you to organize your people, the prices that you want to list out, the items that you sell, anything that has to do without accounts, right? They're just things that you put into QuickBooks. Anything that's in a list, all right? Business management, again, we take a look in every single chapter. A sales report is going to be a business management, right? Accounts, your bills, your open invoices or open bills are going to be a business management type of report. Items list report is also going to be item stocks, inventory. They're all going to be in means of business management, because what those things do is it helps you answer a question. Okay? It answers a question that you have about the company. But in this case, right, it's split into different categories. So again, sales, right? If you're curious about sales, right? What are you curious about sales? Are you curious about sales by customer, sales by job, sales by item, right? What question are you asking the company that a business management report cannot answer? All right, and that's the purpose of running these reports. Now, again, I'm going to skip over this because we already know, we've seen it before. We know exactly what business reports do because we do it in every single chapter. Okay? So I'm not going to go over this. But what I am going to go over is, how do I customize my actual report? Okay? Well, let's go ahead and take a look. How do I actually customize a report? So if I go to the report center, right? Let's say I want to create a mail order, or, a promo mailing list, right? I can do that. All I need is my list and run a report on my customers. So do I want my customer's phone number or contact list? In this case, I want my contact list because I'm going to be mailing out promotional flyers, maybe marketing materials, or even a weekly news ad, right? So in this case, I have this right here. I've created my customer contact list, right? Now, notice this. There's a bunch of information on here that I don't actually need. I don't need a phone number because I'm not going to call them. I don't need to know what their full name is and what description they belong to, right? In this case, all I need is very minimal piece of information. So, how do I customize my report to reflect the information that I want to display? Well, that's this part right here. You have to go onto a report and you have to run it, of course, for you to be able to customize it. And you have this button right here that says customize reports. Okay, so in this case, it's going to give me 4 options or 4 tabs that I can customize my window accordingly. So the first one says display. Display is going to show me what columns or what piece of information that is necessary for me to customize my report. So in this case, do I need to have a left margin? No. Do I need to have a customer? No. Do I need to have their balance total? No. All right. What should I have on here? I should definitely have whether they are a Mr. or Mrs., right? I need a first name and I need a last name. Middle initials is optional, okay? Do I need their main phone number? No, I do not need their phone number or their fax number. Okay? But what I do need to have is going to be their billing address. So primary contact, I don't need that. Okay? What I do need is a bill to address, right? And that means if I want to select this, I can. If not, I choose not to. And I want street number 1, city, state, and zip code. That's all I need in this report. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So notice this. It organizes my information accordingly by what I set it up to be. So in this case, I can say, okay, I'm going to send Miss Maria Cruz. I'm going to send her a promotional flyer, and it's going to be sent to this address and this city with this state and this zip code. That's all I need to have for this report. Okay? I don't need a contact information because I'm not going to call them. I'm sending them promotional flyers. Okay? So in this case, that's how I was able to customize my report to display the following information. Okay? Let's see what else I can do to customize this report. Well, right? I can choose filters. So what do filters do? Well, if you have a particular group, What if all of these individuals, what if they choose not to be bothered, right? What if I want to send them emails instead of send them promotional things, or maybe I could do both, right? If you categorized your customers accordingly by email or by billing, right? You could choose this saying, well, I want to email all of the customers that have email set up. All right, you could just go ahead and select that. So this gives you a filter way to be able to contact your customers accordingly, whether you want to bill them, call them, or even just email them. That's what this section does. It filters your customers so you can, be able to filter the list accordingly. Okay. Next section is going to be headers and footers. So in this case, right, it says here that what do I want to have displayed? In this case, I have displayed my company name, the report title, and so on and so forth. What if I want to change this because it's no longer customer contact list? What if I want to change this to say promotional promo mailing address list? Okay, promotional mailing address list. I want to change it to that. Okay, and do I want it to say February 14? In this case, do I want to have a date or a subtitle? It doesn't matter. Maybe I want to send promotional information maybe for Valentine's Day, since today's Valentine's Day, right? And I can even choose a date that it was prepared. So in this case, I could say it was prepared, today, or whatever you want to choose. Okay. And again, you want to be printed on this. So then if you notice this, right, it's changing my information. So that's what I want it to look like. I can even go as far as changing the fonts and colors. So let's say, right, this is my mailing list, right? This is what I want to display, Imagine Photography, okay? If I want to change the font or color, I can do so here. So in this case, I want to change my, let's change the company name. I want my company name to be in big letters in the font that my company's font is. So whichever font that you are, so again, I can select this one, okay? And I can make this as big as I want. So I can make it 16, or let's make it 20 and click OK. Okay? And then this says right here, change to all related fonts. Yes. Okay, so there you go. I changed my font right here. This is what it looks like. Okay, what if I want to change my color? So in this case, I could go back to change fonts and I can actually select a color. What if Imagine Photography was actually maroon, black, and white? So I can go ahead and click maroon and click yes. Okay, and now that I'm going to change my font, I'm going to click OK. So this is what happens. It changes the font, it changes the color, it changes what this was, right? This was a promo mailing address list, right? It changed the font and the formatting of my report because I wanted to do so, right? I wanted to make it look tailored to my company. All right? And that's what you can do for customizing. All right? Any other details that you could do here is, well, let's take a look. Up here, you can even memorize this actual template. So what does memorizing do? Well, if I click memorize, right, let's say I want to save this for the future, okay? I can click memorize, and what's going to happen is it's going to be promo mailing address list 1. Do I want to save it in a memorized report group? Sure. I'm going to save this under my customers. Okay, and or do I want to save this report template with others? And I said no. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to save it. Okay, so that means the next time I want to run a report, right, that looks exactly like this with all my saved changes, I can do so by going to my memorized report. So you don't have to, once you created your report, right, you don't have to necessarily have to recreate the same changes or do the same changes in this case, right? Because I created it once, I saved my changes, and what I did was I memorized this report. Okay, so I can use it later, and I'll show you where you'll be able to find that. Okay, you can even print it, right? You could choose the option to reprint the report like actual on physical paper, or you could choose to export it as PDF. Okay, so again, QuickBooks is very universal. It is definitely using the today's form, right? Again, PDF, which is Adobe, right? Very easily accessible. It is also comparable to Microsoft Excel. Okay, for any reason that you need to make changes to it, you can export it to Excel. Okay, so in this case, right, as you can see my report, right, what if I want to make the columns wider or shrink it or, print this page into one or format it? Maybe I need to add an extra table. Unfortunately, QuickBooks cannot do that. You would have to actually export it to Excel, and then Excel will allow you to make those extra changes that you want accordingly. Okay? So if you want to add a table, add in lines or whatever it is, add in cells, you're going to have to actually export it. Now, if you export it to Excel, unfortunately, no, you cannot import it back into QuickBooks. It will not work. So in this case, if you are looking into making this mailing address list really pretty, you're going to have to either export it to Excel and be able to go through it that way. If you want to send this over through email, you can go ahead and save it as an Excel or save it as a PDF and email it. Okay? And of course, you can choose to refresh and so on and so forth. So in this case, that is what you can do when you're customizing a report. You can save it, right, to memorize it, and you can also make changes to it. Okay? So if I go ahead and exit this report, right, and let's say I want to create it again. How do I actually recreate that exact same one? Again, I'm going to go to my report center. And as I mentioned, right, you have 5 tabs at the top of your report center. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to memorized, right? Because I saved it under memorized reports, and I placed it under customers. So if I go ahead and click on that, I'm going to go ahead and locate. It should be the very bottom one. Here it is. Promo mailing address list. So if I go ahead and double click on it, it will run it with the changes I have made and saved. And there you go. It's done for you automatically with by you making sure that you memorize the report. So how do I find it? Exactly how I just showed you, right? Report center, and you're going to go ahead and report it. Go to the memorized tab and then select the report. Okay? Any questions on customizing reports?
No.
Okay? So a few things that you can do too is if you want to, you can even do things like create graphs in your in reports. So in this case, right, I can select this one and let's do a income and expenses report based on so I have to actually toggle the dates here. So in this case, I want this to be let's do January 1st to February. Okay, and then run. Okay, so here is my graph. Now, as you can see, you got a bar graph and a pie graph. Now, this is where it shows you all the information, and yes, you can print this out. Now, the only thing that you cannot do here is you cannot modify the colors. So if these colors are too bright for you or they just don't reflect your company's colors, well, too bad. You can't do anything about it. Okay? Now, can I do something about it? Yes, you can. If you export it to Excel, you can change the colors very easily, right? You can even do the feature where you can pull apart the pieces, right? Excel allows you to do that, right? So you can take a look at what is the biggest chunk of your expenses, okay? But in this case, if you need to look at more information, you can use the quick zoom feature, and it should be able to bring that information for you. So I just clicked on that green section, and it tells me this is what's going on. This is the expenses, and this is what it happened here. But it just gives me that much more detail, saying that in January, between January, you had a huge spike in this expense area, which is the green section, which is going to be rent expense. Okay? All right? So that's what you can do here. But again, you are limited to, again, recreating or redesigning your information, right? But this allows you to create the information, and if you want to make changes to it, you export it to Excel. So yes, you can build graphs into QuickBooks, but if it's not to your liking, you should change it accordingly, right? So that means the colors that are already there are standard, and it just does it for you automatically. Okay. All right. Let's see what else. We already talked about memorized reports. We talked about how to export to Excel, and so on and so forth. Last section of this chapter is going to be how to process multiple reports. So in this case, once again, your only option and your only way to do this is going to be on your reports tab, and I'm going to select process multiple reports. Okay? This is very good and very useful to use if you are in the position of the accountant, right? And you need to run as many reports as possible. So in this case, what this feature allows you to do is, just like its title, right? It allows you to process multiple reports. Now, how many reports can I do? Well, as many as that you can calculate, right? So in this case, if I am doing it for memorized reports, I can choose not, okay? Actually, let's do memorized, select memorized reports. So in this case, all reports, okay? And then in this case, I can select what I can do. So again, you do need to create your memorized reports first. So what if I want to process all of them, right? I would select all of them, or as many as I can. So maybe I'll do this one, and this one. And I'm going to go ahead and click display. So again, you need to have a list of whether you're doing your memorized report section or this one. So again, if it's a frequent report that you constantly do, you would memorize it and then process multiple of them at one time. So once I select the reports that I want to view, I'm going to click display, and this is what's going to happen. And you're going to click OK. It's going to open every single window as possible like this. Okay, so there you go. You're processing multiple reports. Now in this case, your unfortunate thing that you have to do is, if you have it viewed as multiple windows, then yes, you can display your reports accordingly. But if you have this as one view window at one time, you have to actually close every single one of them for you to be able to get to where you need to get to. Okay? So that's the unfortunate spot there. Now, of course, you can close the entire program and it will exit all of the reports for you. But again, if this is very useful for you, again, you would have to just manually close every single one of them. There is no way to close all of them all at once except for exiting the program. Okay, but in case like so here I did a unpaid bills report, I did a statement of cash flows report, right? And I did a profit and loss report. Okay, so again, it's yes. So that's how you process multiple reports. It's just a quicker way to just view information quicker and all at the same time. All right. Any questions in regards to chapter 6? No
No.
questions?
No.
All right, so with the time left remaining in class, let's go ahead and go over the multiple choice questions here. So once again, choose the best answers for each of the following, okay? Number 1, okay? What are the two major types of reports in QuickBooks?
C.
C, that's correct. Accounting and business management reports, okay? Number 2, use the Customize Reports button on any report too.
A.
A, right?
Use it.
Correct. You would use it to add or delete any columns or change the accounting basis on the report. Sure, you could do that too. B says change the width of the columns in the report. No, you absolutely cannot do that in QuickBooks. C says print the report on blank paper. I mean, yes, you can do that, but is that any means of customizing the report? No, not really. And then D says memorize the report for future use. Does that have to do with anything with customizing? In this case, you would have to make the customization first and then you memorize it, but the purpose of using the customize reports button is to make changes to the report, not to memorize it. Okay? Number 3, okay? You cannot create a quick report for. So
Is it D?
D as in dog is correct for incorrectly posted entries. So again, no, you cannot create a quick report on things that are wrong because again, when you find things that are wrong in QuickBooks, it's usually due to human error because who's the one that's essentially putting the information into QuickBooks? You are. Who's the one that's manually deleting everything? You are. So in this case, will QuickBooks notify you whether you made a mistake or not? Absolutely not. But it will give you warnings in case it is something that you shouldn't do. It will warn you ahead of time. But most cases, oftentimes, QuickBooks will not know if you made a mistake or not. So there's no way that it can be able to run a report on your mistakes. Okay? So again, yes, you can create for customers, right? We took a look at customers. Anybody that's a person you can run reports on. And plus any items, okay? We already looked at that, right? All right, number 4, okay? To create a report that lists each of your vendors along with their address and telephone number, okay? What kind of report would you run? What kind of report would you run in for you to display information such as the vendor's name, the vendor's address, phone number?
A business management.
It is a business management type, but what specific report would you create? That's the question.
Profit and loss.
Vendor contact list.
Okay, Kim,
Um,
why would you run a profit
I'm
and
on the
loss on this one?
I'm on number 5. You're on number 4.
I'm on number 4.
Okay.
Yes, so it would be the vendor contact list. Okay. Number 5, in order to analyze the profitability for your company, you should, then you answer the question. So in this case,
Yeah, B.
B, profit and loss. Okay, because straight away, profit and loss, right? If you're countering all your earnings against everything that you spent to operate the business, that's more or less testing profitability. Its name is also in its title as well. Okay. Number 6, okay? Which statement is false? You may analyze your income and expenses for a given period.
Is it C?
For number 6, C is correct by vendor. Okay, so which statement is false? Okay, in this case, you may analyze your income and expenses by vendor. No, right? Your vendors are going to be your expenses, but it doesn't show anything that has to do with income. Okay, jobs, right, is your customers. So definitely, how much it doesn't cost you to create the job, but how much money are you profiting out of it? And of course by class, because the class you can see which store is actually doing better, right? I already showed you an example, right? By running the profit and loss by class, right? We got to see what are the income that I've generated from this store and what are the expenses I spent for this store. So in this case, the false one is going to be C. Okay. Number 7, okay, which reports show monies owed to you, to your company by customers?
B.
Good, right? The collections report, right? So how much money are you collecting from your customers would be the collections report. Good. Okay. Number 8, in order to modify the header and footer of your report,
D.
D for number 8 is correct. You're going to click Customize Report button and then click on Header and Footer tab. Good. All right. You need to initialize what you're trying to do first before. There's no just header and footer button on your report, right? You have to click Customize first. Okay. Number 9, processing multiple reports allows you to
B.
B. Organize the memorized reports list into groups of related reports. Good. Right? B is correct, right? Number 10. Okay. The profit and loss reports allows which of the following ... Which of the following?
Is it A?
For number 10, let's see. Assets, liabilities, and equity accounts. Okay, so in this case, profit and loss is when you generate a whole bunch of revenue and go and compare them against the expenses for this account. For the business, right? Profit and loss. So in this case, has nothing to do with assets, liabilities, and equity. That is the balance sheet.
Oh, balance sheet.
Mm-hmm. So then
So is it C?
it would definitely be C, right? Because I kind of mentioned it, right? It's taking all of your profits, so all of your income that you generated, and it counters against all of your expenses, which includes the cost of goods sold, your expenses, your other income, and your other expenses. Okay, so C is correct. That's what the profit and loss does.
Cost of goods sold. Okay.
That's an expense.
Yeah.
Number 11, if the profit and loss by class reports has an unclassified column,
D.
D as in David.
D as in David for 11 is correct, right? It just means that some of the transactions that were recorded for the period of the week were not assigned to a class. That's it, right? Unclassified, straightforward. Okay. Number 12, you can export reports to
Excel.
yes.
Yeah, through Microsoft.
Well, you want to be very careful, right? Is there any means that you need to export to Microsoft Word?
No, Excel.
No, right? Because in this case, you don't need it in document form. It would be preferable in Excel because spreadsheets, right? Especially the reports that you run, a lot of it has, you know, columns with filled with information. So your best bet would be Excel. Okay. Number 13. Okay. Number 13 asks, okay, which is a feature of the filters tab on the modified reports window?
D.
Let's take a look at D. Filters allow you to modify the date range on most reports. Is that true? That's not what filters do.
It is C.
C, right? It allows you to do specific accounts. This one says dates, names, and items to include on a report. So again, if you remember when we did our customer, right, it depends on what report you're doing. If you're doing a customer one, you can separate each customer by group, right? Are they all email? Are they all telephone? Do they all have addresses? Do they all want to be contacted via this, right? If it was items, then it'd be separate, right? It'd be like, oh, do you want to filter them by services you provide? Do you want to filter it by products that you actually sell? Or do you want to filter it by the sales tax that you charged? Okay, so on and so forth. Okay, but in this case, the example I showed you was for customers, but that's what filters do. It allows you to further categorize and display certain piece of information based on a criteria. Okay. Number 14, okay, to modify which columns are displayed on the report, okay, click Customize Report and then click the names of the columns to be displayed on the what tab? What tab?
B.
B is correct, the display tab, right? You have 4 tabs. Once again, you got the display tab, the filter tab, the header and footer tab, and of course, you have the fonts and numbers tab. So again, in this case, right, the very first tab I showed you was display, which allows me to show information that I want to show, right? In this case, I selected columns I wanted to display and things I didn't want to display. Okay. And then last question of the day is to fit a report to one page with feature. Okay, sorry. With feature does which one of the following? Okay, the fit report to one page with feature, comma, does which of the following? What does it do? What does it do?
Is it C as in Charles?
C as in Charles is correct, right? It changes the font size so it can just fit on a regular piece of paper that's 8.5 by 11. Yes. Now in this case, that's a modification, so you want to do that when you set your printer parameters, okay? But again, if you have a long list, so for example, my chart of accounts, if I did a general ledger report, I can make it so then it fits to one page by customizing that, okay, when I set up my printing, okay. All right, any other extra questions into chapter 6?